Since the dawn of human curiosity, we've looked to the stars, wondering what lay beyond the boundaries of our world. What if there were worlds out there? Planets that we could one day reach, planets that could be better than Earth. The idea of distant worlds has sparked our imagination for centuries, and today, our search is no longer confined to myths and stories. We are actively exploring the cosmos, pushing the boundaries of space and time in search of the ultimate paradise. But how realistic is this dream? Can we truly find a planet that could one day be our new home? Could we discover a world that offers unimaginable beauty, harmony, and opportunity, a place where life flourishes in a way that goes beyond anything we know on Earth? The concept of Earth 2.0 has captivated both scientists and dreamers alike. But the reality is complex. In this chapter, we explore the beginning of the quest for unreachable worlds. We take the first steps in understanding the science, technology, and ethics behind the search for paradise, and begin to face the cosmic questions that will shape our future journey into the stars. A universe full of possibility. The vastness of space can make us feel insignificant, a mere speck in the grand expanse of the cosmos. Yet, this very vastness also holds endless possibilities, the potential for countless habitable worlds scattered across the universe, waiting to be discovered. The Kepler mission has already identified thousands of exoplanets that reside within the habitable zone, the sweet spot where liquid water could exist. Planets like Kepler 452b, often dubbed Earth's cousin, give us a glimpse of worlds that might share the same conditions that allowed life to evolve here. However, while such planets may have the potential for life, we must ask, what makes a planet truly better than Earth? What is the criteria for an ideal world? The search for better worlds goes beyond simply identifying planets that may support life. It involves understanding the nuances of what makes a world perfect for human habitation, the presence of water, atmosphere, energy sources, and suitable temperatures. These factors, though essential, are just the beginning of what makes a planet ideal. To find a paradise world, we must first understand what paradise really means. Is it just a planet with Earth-like conditions, or is it a world that allows us to thrive in ways we cannot currently imagine? The concept of paradise extends beyond the physical. It embodies the ideal conditions for life and the ultimate human experience. The search for a new Earth, the science behind the quest. When scientists search for planets that could potentially support life, they focus on a wide range of factors that make a world capable of sustaining ecosystems. While the focus has largely been on Earth-like planets, those that sit comfortably in the habitable zone around their stars, the complexity of finding a perfect world goes beyond simple conditions. Atmosphere is critical in determining whether a planet could support life. The presence of oxygen, nitrogen, and other gases in the right proportions would be necessary for human survival. But what happens if these gases exist in different ratios or in forms that we cannot yet comprehend? Another essential factor is gravity. A world with gravity too weak or too strong could make human life difficult or even impossible. We need a planet with the right gravitational pull to allow for human growth and to maintain the stability of the atmosphere. The orbital distance is another key aspect of identifying a suitable planet. A planet too close to its star could become an uninhabitable desert, while a planet too far away might be locked in eternal winter where life cannot survive. These are just a few of the basic conditions that must be met to make a planet suitable for life as we know it. But beyond these essential factors, we must also consider the challenges that come with reaching another world. Even if we find a perfectly hospitable planet, how do we reach it? What would it take to send human explorers to another star system? The role of technology, making the impossible possible. The dream of discovering a better world, a world that offers us a new Earth, is not just rooted in fantasy, but in the advances of science and technology. We are currently developing the tools and techniques that could one day allow us to travel across the vast distances of space. Interstellar travel remains one of the greatest challenges in the history of science. Even the closest star systems are light years away, and current propulsion technology is far from sufficient to allow us to reach these worlds. However, the development of faster-than-light travel, such as theoretical warp drives, may one day allow humanity to overcome these vast distances and explore the stars. As we build better spacecraft, design advanced propulsion systems, and consider the potential for generational ships, the dream of reaching another world seems more tangible than ever. We may never be able to fully reach the unreachable worlds within our lifetimes, but the tools we are developing now will lay the foundation for future generations to continue the journey. Ethical considerations. Should we reach for paradise? As humanity dreams of finding a better world, a paradise planet to call home, we must ask, do we have the right to colonize? What ethical responsibilities do we bear as we expand beyond our home planet, and what is the cost of this pursuit? Throughout history, humanity has faced questions about the ethics of exploration and colonization. Our ancestors sailed across oceans, discovered new lands, and sought to conquer what was unknown. But as we stand at the edge of space, we must ask if our desire to colonize distant worlds is born of necessity or a continued drive for dominion. What happens if we find a world that already hosts life? Are we prepared to preserve those ecosystems, to understand the life forms we encounter, or will we repeat the mistakes of the past, exploiting and disrupting those fragile worlds in our pursuit of a new home? The quest for paradise in space also raises questions about the ethics of exploration and the choices we must make when we reach beyond Earth. The dream of paradise. A journey beyond the stars. The dream of finding a better world is not just about seeking a new home. It is about the hope that somewhere, out in the cosmos, there is a place that embodies the best of what we can be. We look to the stars not only for new land, but for the possibility of creating a better future for humanity. We dream of worlds where we live in harmony with nature, where the chaos of our own history is left behind, and where we can thrive without the constraints of Earth's limitations. In the end, the quest for a better world is much more than just a search for paradise. It is a search for meaning. It is about understanding our place in the universe, about knowing that somewhere, out there may be a place that holds the answers to the deepest questions we have about life, existence, and the future of humanity. As we continue to look to the stars, we may never find the perfect world, but the search itself will reveal more about us than we ever imagined. And as we venture further into the unknown, we will carry with us the knowledge that the journey itself is the true paradise. When we gaze into the depths of space, we wonder, what if paradise exists, but we are unable to reach it? As we explore the cosmos, we face the question, what lies beyond the worlds we know? Could there be other planets where life flourishes, where ecosystems thrive beyond imagination, or even worlds that we have yet to comprehend? For centuries, humanity has dreamed of finding a place of utopian existence. We have imagined worlds where suffering is absent, where life forms coexist in perfect harmony, and where paradise is not a myth, but a reality waiting to be found. As our telescopes and space missions push farther, we begin to question, what if such worlds exist? And more importantly, how do we find them? In this chapter, we explore the quest for paradise planets, worlds that may be waiting for us, light years away. What if we are simply too early in our cosmic history to reach these destinations? What does it mean to find a planet that could become a new Earth? What would we be willing to sacrifice in pursuit of this new home, a world that holds not just the potential for survival, but for thriving in unimaginable ways? The search for the perfect world, impossible, yet worth the journey. The search for paradise is as old as human. Exploration itself. From ancient myths to modern space exploration, the idea of finding a perfect world has captivated humanity. In early history, explorers sought new lands to expand their horizons, to discover what might lie beyond the familiar shores of their home. Today, the quest for a better world has expanded beyond the Earth to the infinite stretch of the cosmos. Yet, there is a profound irony in this quest. The perfect world may be impossible to find. Our understanding of what makes a planet perfect is limited by our own biology and culture. What we consider ideal for life on Earth may not be the same for an entirely different ecosystem on a distant planet. We are confronted with the possibility that paradise is more of a dream than a reality, a concept we project onto the vast unknowns of the universe. But the fact remains, the quest for the unreachable is the driving force of human curiosity. Even if perfection may be unattainable, the very search itself propels us forward. The yearning for a paradise planet compels us to venture deeper into space, pushing past the limits of our knowledge and technology and daring to ask, what if? The science of habitability. Understanding what makes a world ideal. The search for paradise worlds goes beyond imagination. It is rooted in science, in understanding the requirements for life to exist elsewhere in the universe. Scientists have developed the concept of the habitable zone, a region around a star where conditions might be right for life. This zone is often referred to as the Goldilocks zone. Not too hot, not too cold, but just right for liquid water, the essential ingredient for life as we know it. To identify a truly ideal planet, scientists must look for multiple key factors. Atmosphere. Does the planet have an atmosphere that can support life? Water. Is there liquid water, essential for the biochemical processes of life? Stable environment. Is the planet stable enough to support long-term life without catastrophic disruptions? Energy source. Does the planet receive enough energy, primarily from its star, to sustain life? Chemical composition. Does the planet possess the right chemical elements to foster life? These factors form the foundation of our search for life beyond Earth, and they guide our explorations of distant exoplanets in the habitable zone. Planets like Proxima b, a rocky world orbiting the star Proxima Centauri, have tantalized scientists with the possibility that they might harbor life, or at least offer conditions that could make them candidates for future colonization. Yet, even with all this knowledge, we face the harsh reality that reaching these worlds is far from easy. The distant dream, light years away. As we continue our journey toward discovering new habitable worlds, we must confront a harsh reality. Even if we locate a paradise planet, it may be unreachable within any human lifetime. The closest star system to us, Alpha Centauri, is more than 4 light-years away. Even at the speed of light, it would take over 4 years to travel to this nearby system. At current spacecraft speeds, it would take tens of thousands of years to reach Proxima b or any other exoplanet in the habitable zone. This reality presents a paradox. We may find these worlds, but will we ever be able to reach them? The stars that shine brightly in our sky are often the markers of a distant future, one that humans may not live to see. While we send probes and telescopes far into space, we are left with a sobering truth. Even the most promising worlds remain out of reach. This brings into focus the idea that paradise may not only be light years away, but also centuries or millennia ahead of us. While we dream of these distant worlds, we must come to terms with the possibility that they may remain unreachable for many generations to come. The ethics of exploration. What would we sacrifice to reach paradise? If we do find a paradise world, would we have the right to colonize it? What are the ethical implications of setting foot on a world that may already harbor life, or one that could be radically different from Earth? Should we risk disrupting ecosystems in our pursuit of a better existence? Would the colonization of another planet be an extension of our imperialistic past? Or would it be a chance for humanity to start fresh, to create a new world based on compassion, sustainability, and harmony? In considering the ethics of space exploration, we must ask, What does it mean to be stewards of a new world? How do we balance the desire to reach a paradise planet with the responsibility to protect the integrity of the life it may harbor? As we dream of a better future, we must also confront the darker truths about our past and ask whether we are ready to make the necessary sacrifices for a truly harmonious existence. From the hope of better worlds, will we ever reach our paradise? In the end, the quest for better worlds in paradise is more than a scientific pursuit. It is a reflection of humanity's deep desire for hope and possibility. As we look out into the universe, we envision a future where we have transcended the limitations of our home planet, a place where we can thrive without the constraints that Earth imposes. We seek not just survival, but the opportunity to flourish in a world that reflects our highest ideals. Yet, despite the vast distance between us and the unreachable worlds, the search continues, because hope is a driving force and human curiosity knows no bounds. Even if paradise remains light years away, the journey itself is worth undertaking, for it may bring us closer to realizing that the greatest world to explore is not just the stars, but the possibilities within our own hearts and minds. As we stand on the precipice of the unknown, gazing at the stars and imagining a world beyond our own, we are confronted with a profound question. What does life beyond Earth look like? What could a world that is better than Earth offer? Is it merely a reflection of our current existence, or does it hold the promise of new forms of life, new experiences, and a revolutionary way of living? The idea of life beyond Earth has been at the heart of human curiosity for millennia. From the ancient stories of gods descending from the heavens to modern science fiction, we have long imagined worlds where life thrives in ways we can only dream of. Now, with the advent of space exploration and astrobiology, we are on the verge of discovering the true possibilities that lie beyond our home planet. But what does life beyond Earth really mean? Is it as simple as finding alien life forms on distant planets, or does it involve understanding entirely new forms of existence, new systems of biochemistry, and the evolution of life in environments far different from anything we know? In this chapter, we embark on an exploration of life beyond Earth, delving into the science, possibilities, and mysteries of life on distant planets, as well as the new technologies that will allow us to reach and study these potential new worlds. The search for extraterrestrial life. The beginning of discovery. The search for alien life is one of the most significant scientific endeavors of our time. From the discovery of microbial life in the harsh environments on Earth to the exploration of Mars and distant exoplanets, we are increasingly confident that life exists beyond our home planet. But the question remains, what kind of life are we looking for? For decades, scientists have been searching for evidence of microbial life on Mars, where conditions may have been conducive to life billions of years ago. Space missions like NASA's Perseverance rover are on the ground, collecting data, hoping to answer the age-old question: did Mars once harbor life? While the evidence is still inconclusive, the search for life on Mars has led to significant discoveries that may eventually unlock the secret of the red planet's potential habitability. Beyond Mars, scientists have turned their attention to exoplanets in the habitable zone of distant stars. These planets, which lie in the Goldilocks zone, the region around a star where conditions are just right for liquid water, offer some of the best chances for finding life elsewhere in the universe. Planets like Kepler 452b and Proxima b are among the most promising candidates for alien life, but as of now, we have no direct evidence of life on any exoplanet. While we search for microbial life, the concept of life beyond Earth extends far beyond simple organisms. Could there be intelligent life somewhere in the universe, capable of technology, culture, and communication? What would we learn from encountering a species that has evolved on a completely different planet with a different history and perhaps even different laws of physics? The possibilities are endless, and each discovery brings us one step closer to understanding the true diversity of life in the universe. Life in extreme environments, a glimpse of what's possible. One of the most fascinating aspects of the search for extraterrestrial life is the discovery of life forms that thrive in extreme environments. On Earth, life is not limited to just forests and oceans. It exists in the most inhospitable conditions imaginable. From deep-sea hydrothermal vents to acidic lakes and frozen deserts, life has adapted to environments once thought impossible for survival. These so-called extremophils are organisms that thrive in conditions of extreme heat, cold, pressure, acidity, or salinity. They have reshaped our understanding of what life can endure, and they provide us with valuable clues about where we might find life elsewhere in the universe. If life can exist in the harshest conditions on Earth, could it also exist in extreme environments on other planets? What if there are life forms living in the subsurface oceans of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, or in the acid clouds of Venus, where life has never been thought to exist? The study of extremophils has sparked a revolution in astrobiology as scientists begin to look for life in places previously overlooked. The idea that life can exist anywhere in the universe has fundamentally changed our approach to exoplanet exploration and opened up new possibilities for discovering life beyond Earth. The search for habitable worlds, a place for life to thrive. The quest for habitable worlds is not limited to finding planets with liquid water and a breathable atmosphere. As we expand our search, we must also consider what it means for a planet to truly support life. While Earth may be the most familiar example of a habitable world, other planets may possess conditions that allow life to flourish in ways we can't fully imagine. For example, on some moons in our solar system, there may be subsurface oceans hidden beneath layers of ice. These oceans could contain life, sustained by chemical reactions at the ocean floor, similar to life around Earth's hydrothermal vents. Places like Europa and Enceladus are prime candidates for this kind of life. Moreover, some scientists believe that life might thrive in environments radically different from anything we experience on Earth. Could a planet with an atmosphere rich in methane, ammonia, or even hydrogen support a form of alien life? What if life could exist in environments without oxygen, without water, or without carbon-based molecules? The possibilities for alien life forms are endless, and the more we learn, the more we realize how diverse and adaptable life can be. The challenges of life beyond Earth. Distance and time. As we contemplate the potential for life on other worlds, we must confront the challenges that stand in our way. The vast distances between stars and planets are staggering. Even the closest potentially habitable exoplanet is light years away. Current space travel technologies, such as chemical rockets, are insufficient for reaching these distant worlds within a human lifetime. In fact, sending humans to an exoplanet would require radical innovations in propulsion technology, perhaps relying on ideas like warp drives, ion propulsion, or even generation ships capable of sustaining life over many generations. And even with advanced technology, we still face the harsh reality of space travel, the dangers of radiation, the challenges of long-term life support, and the immense physical and psychological toll on explorers. Despite these challenges, the potential for finding life beyond Earth is limitless. If we are willing to push the boundaries of our technology and our imagination, we can unlock the greatest mystery of all. Are we truly alone in the universe, or is life waiting to be discovered on worlds far beyond our own? The ethics of life beyond Earth. How will we engage with other life forms? As we continue our search for life beyond Earth, we must consider the ethical implications of such discoveries. What should we do if we find microbial life on another planet or intelligent life on distant worlds? How will we engage with these forms of life? Will we respect their existence, or will we exploit and alter their ecosystems as we have done throughout human history? The ethical questions surrounding life beyond Earth are profound, and they challenge us to think about our role in the broader cosmic community. How do we reconcile our drive for exploration and discovery with the responsibility to protect the life forms we may encounter? Can we truly claim ownership of a world, Or should we approach extraterrestrial ecosystems with the same reverence and protection we apply to Earth's fragile biosphere? These questions are still largely speculative, but they highlight the need for responsible, thoughtful exploration as we expand beyond the solar system. As we look to the stars and imagine new worlds, we must also look within and ask, what kind of explorers do we want to be? For the first time in human history, the question is no longer, are we alone, but are we ready to leave? The dream of unreachable worlds is beginning to turn into a decision, not a fantasy, not a telescope, not a distant theory, but a plan. And that is where humanity hesitates, not in knowledge, but in courage. Because searching for other worlds is safe. Choosing to abandon our own, that is irreversible. This chapter is not about discovery. It is about departure, about what it would actually require, physically, technologically, ethically, psychologically, for humanity to attempt what no civilization before us has ever done: build a second Earth. The moment humanity realizes Earth will not last, civilizations don't truly change until they run out of time. Climate collapse, biosphere exhaustion, overpopulation, AI outgrowing its creator, solar instability, a single rock in space ending everything overnight. We spent centuries believing we had time. And then, we didn't. The first shift was not panic. It was acceptance, the understanding that staying is the true risk. Remaining earthbound is not loyalty, it is extinction on delay. And so, human civilization quietly entered its most dangerous era, the preparation. The impossible engineering problem. To leave Earth permanently, we face a truth harsher than any science fiction has ever dared to write. We are too slow. We are too fragile. Space is not an environment, it is a weapon. Radiation that unravels DNA, vacuum that boils blood, darkness that fractures the mind, silence that erodes the concept of self. Surviving space is not evolution, it is forced rebirth, which means humanity must choose between two brutal paths. Path 1. Rewrite ourselves, gene editing, psionic stabilizers, radiation-adaptive blood, AI-stitched cognition, become less human to survive as human. Path 2, rewrite the ship, build a vessel that simulates gravity, weather, seasons, forests, rainfall. A closed biosphere that must never mathematically fail. A ship not like technology, but like a controlled ecosystem the size of a moving continent. The conclusion was obvious, even if unacceptable at first. We will need both. Generation ships, cities that outlive their founders. The first blueprint was not a rocket. It was a civilization that does not age with its passengers, a city designed to survive 200 years without Earth, not luxury, not comfort, mathematical perfection, every drop of water recycled, every breath mapped, every birth calculated, every death accounted for in the oxygen cycle. A ship not launched for glory, but to survive entropy for centuries, not a vehicle, a self-contained evolving biosphere where humans may die, but the ship itself must not. And then came the psychological barrier. Harder than propulsion, harder than radiation, you will never return. Your children will never see Earth. You are not travelers, you are founders of a history that will never remember you. Most failed mission proposals died not from fuel, but from fear. The ethical war. Who decides who gets to leave? Once humanity accepted departure as inevitable, a new problem emerged, uglier than physics. Who gets to leave Earth first? The rich, the brilliant, the genetically clean, the obedient, the fertile, the loyal? Utopia cannot begin with selection based on superiority, or it becomes colonialism in space, the beginning of galactic tyranny. For the first time in history, the question of humanity's future was no longer technological, it was moral. Earth was no longer the test, the Ark was, and the haunting realization entered every debate. If we fail the ethics, we do not deserve a second Earth. The point of no return. Thousands of years from now, Future civilizations may argue about when humanity's true interstellar age began. It won't be when warp technology is invented. It won't be when the first habitable world is reached. It won't even be when we discover alien life. It will be when humanity stopped exploring and started leaving. That moment is now. Part 5 will be the moment humanity commits. There is no going back. There is a moment in every civilization when dreaming is no longer enough, a moment where hesitation becomes extinction, a moment where the question shifts from "should we go?" to "are we already too late?" This is that moment, not a mission briefing, not a simulation, not a concept video for the future, but the irreversible ignition of the single most consequential decision in human history. We leave Earth, and we do it knowing we will never come back. The world holds its breath. The announcement was not made with celebration, no fireworks, no triumph. It was made with silence, a silence even louder than fear. Because the world understood instantly, this was not an exploration mission. This was an evacuation prototype, a proof of concept for the day Earth stops forgiving us. The first arc will not bring humanity forward. It will test if humanity still deserves a future. No one sleeps that night, not governments, not religions, not even those who once mocked the stars, because now space is not distant. It is destiny. The final debates before the launch. What follows is not scientific discussion, it is moral warfare. 5 questions fracture the world. 1. Who gets to go? Lottery, merit, bloodline, vote, algorithm, AI selection. Every option is either unfair or dangerous. 2. Is leaving Earth a betrayal? Do we abandon the billions who cannot leave? Is survival the right of the strong or the obligation of the responsible? 3. Do we send warriors or gardeners, which is more essential, survival or civilization? Do we conquer or do we plant? 4. Does Earth still count as home? If we leave forever, are we still human or do we become something new? 5. Who leads a civilization that no longer has a planet, no borders, no nations, no history, no past, only future? And through all the arguments, one truth echoes quietly beneath every speech. If we cannot even agree now, we are not ready to leave. The first arc is named. It is not called Hope, not Genesis, not Odyssey. Too poetic, too premature. It is given a name with mathematical neutrality, something that implies duty, not destiny. Arc 1. Humanity's first irreversible answer to entropy. A ship not designed for triumph, but for survival without apology. And then, humanity crosses the line. The launch pad is silent. There are 1,000 cameras, 1 billion live watchers. But the world knows, history has no spectators. The engines ignite, and humanity becomes a species that has left its origin. No one cheers, no one speaks, not even the crew aboard Arc 1. Because the moment it clears Earth's gravity well, Earth is no longer a guarantee. It is now a memory, a reference point, not a home. Humanity has crossed the line from which myth becomes responsibility, from which failure becomes tragedy, not for us, but for everything that could have come after us. For years, the world had looked toward the stars with curiosity. Now, it looked with urgency. The tone of the human race had changed, not out of wonder, but out of inevitability. Because for the first time in history, the question was no longer what is out there, but what happens if we stay. There are moments in civilization when fantasy fractures, moments when the romantic dream of the future exits poetry and enters survival math. This was that moment. Humanity had reached the threshold where staying earthbound was not wisdom, it was delay, and delay was death, not immediate, not cinematic, worse, silent, incremental, irreversible. The kind of extinction that doesn't announce itself, but settles in the atmosphere, accumulates in the ocean, waits patiently in the soil like a prophecy fulfilled at its own pace. The world had always imagined first contact, but it never truly prepared for last breath. Earth begins to whisper its warnings. It didn't start with apocalypse. It started with disproportion. Winters that arrived too late, summers that refused to leave, microbial blooms that erased coastlines silently at night, animals migrating to places they had no evolutionary language for, ancient permafrost exhaling gases older than civilization itself. Not a cinematic crisis, a mathematical one. Not chaos, inevitable results of systems pushed beyond correction. Politicians argued, corporations delayed, people adapted, until adapting became compliance with collapse. And in time, the most dangerous sentence of human complacency emerged. We'll solve it later. But the atmosphere does not negotiate, the biosphere does not reset on command, and time is the only resource humanity cannot manufacture. Humanity faces the realization. The shift was quiet, no breaking news, no singular catastrophic event, only a realization whispered across the brightest minds of every discipline in every nation. We have crossed beyond self-repair. Earth would no longer end with an explosion, but with exhaustion. And so, the race began. The Ark Initiative. It did not begin as heroism. It began as emergency mathematics. The name given to it was the Ark Initiative, but never publicly. To governments, it was called continuity contingency. To scientists, post-anthropic viability modeling. To corporations, asset preservation by off-world expansion. To the public, nothing. The public wasn't told, not at first. Because the revelations of failure do not inspire, they riot. Only when engineering solutions began to look calculable did the world begin to announce, not with pride, not as conquest, as redemption or surrender. The final question before the leap, before the first ark was approved, before the first departure list was written, before the first line of DNA was modified for radiation tolerance, a single question had to be confronted. Are we escaping or evolving? Because if we are escaping, we will repeat our failure elsewhere. But if we are evolving, the universe will be changed by our arrival. That question determined everything. The Ark would not be a ship. It would be a filter, a mirror, not of technology, but of humanity's worthiness to leave. When the first Ark vanished beyond the blue edge of the sky, Earth did not celebrate. It exhaled, not with relief, but with the exhausted silence of a world that finally understood. This was not triumph. This was confession. Humanity, after 1,000,000 years of evolution, had done something no species had ever done before. It admitted Earth may no longer survive with us on it, and in that admission, a fracture began. What happens to a world when it realizes it is being left behind? The shift no one could hide anymore. Up until launch day, the world still pretended it had time. Leaders argued on stages, economists revised timelines, normal people refreshed weather apps more than news headlines. But when Ark 1 left the stratosphere, the lie died instantly. People did not panic, they went quiet. An eerie, synchronized awareness spread across the world, like the silence inside a cathedral when truth finally arrives. It was not fear of space, it was the realization that humanity had never once made a permanent decision before. Wars end, governments collapse, empires rot and rebuild. Even extinction is not chosen, it happens. But this was the first voluntary severance from the only home humanity had ever known. And for billions still on Earth, a new, terrifying question began to whisper. Are we the ones being abandoned? Earth looks at itself, with no more filters. For the first time, climate reports were not politics. Species extinction reports were not statistics. Water scarcity was not a graph. It became personal. Because suddenly, Earth wasn't the whole world. It became a location, a coordinate, a place one could leave. The mind break was irreversible. We were not the universe's center. Earth was not destiny. It was now a case study. Documented, measured, graded. And by the unspoken tone of Ark 1's departure, we knew our grade. We had failed Earth. The birth of two civilizations on the same planet. It did not take years, it took days. Humanity split, not across borders, not across culture, but across psychology. Group 1, the anchored. Those who believed leaving Earth was betrayal. That salvation must be won here, or not at all. They chose restoration, roots, memory, redemption. Group 2, the ascenders. Those who accepted the era of planets was ending, that any civilization depending on one world was already mathematically doomed. They chose preparation, adaptation, momentum, and for the first time, both sides were right, which made the fracture permanent. The quiet collapse of everything familiar economies shifted overnight, not gradually, instantly. Investment drained from terrestrial luxuries into interstellar logistics, birth rates manipulated by private survival blocks. Nation-states began secretly drafting space inheritance laws. Religions split into planet-centric and post-planetary branches. Flags became irrelevant. Continuity, not sovereignty, became the new currency of power. Even art changed. Paintings stopped being landscapes. They became farewells. Earth feels smaller. For the first time in history, Earth had always felt infinite to those living on it, rich with unknown places, unfinished stories, future possibility. But the moment humanity gained a real exit, the planet shrank. Not physically, spiritually. We were suddenly bigger than our home, not because we deserved to be, but because we were now aware of our cage. And cages, once seen for what they are, cannot ever feel like whole worlds again. The first tears in reality itself. What do mothers say to children now? Do they teach them to fight for Earth, or train them to prepare for Exodus? What do governments promise, a future here, or a ticket elsewhere? What do songs pray for now? Rainfall, or safe arrival beyond Alpha Centauri? What do humans do when hope itself must be geographically reassigned? Earth had always imagined apocalypse as a sudden event, fire, impact, flood, collapse. It never imagined apocalypse could begin as something quiet, something slow, something like a launch. They were the first humans in history who were not taught to dream about the future, but to leave it behind. The children born after the launch of Ark 1 were not raised like any generation before them. They were not raised to inherit Earth. They were raised to depart from it. No poetry about homeland, no promises about fixing what is broken, no illusions of permanence. They were taught, directly, openly, that their birth was not into a planet, but into a transit. Their childhood was not preparation for citizenship, but for migration. A childhood without the concept of forever. Previous generations grew up with invisible safety anchors. This is my country. This is how seasons work. This is where my life will happen. This is where I will die. For the first Exodus generation, none of these were true. They were raised inside floating training habitats, synthetic pseudo-gravity rings orbiting Earth, or sealed subterranean simulators designed to mimic isolation psychology. Children learned orbital mechanics before they learned national history. They learned radiation shielding protocols at the same age others once learned nursery rhymes. They grew up with no concept of sky that wasn't artificial. Earth was not their home. It was only their origin point. Emotionally engineered for departure. This generation was not just trained, they were shaped. Engineered not through genetics yet, but through emotion control. Their minds were sculpted carefully, deliberately, so they would not feel what previous humans felt: homesickness, nostalgia, territorial attachment, the fear of departure. To older civilizations, leaving home was loss. To this one, staying would be the tragedy. They were trained out of romantic attachment to Earth, out of the belief that existence required soil, out of the myth that their identity belonged to a location. Instead, identity was linked to motion, forward, expansion, becoming. Education for a species that will never belong to one world again. Their schooling had nothing to do with jobs. It was built around civilizational continuity and multi-century survival. Their curriculum was terrifyingly specific: how to maintain fusion reactors across 6 generations, how to interpret alien biospheres without contaminating or being contaminated, how to mathematically detect cultural decay before it becomes irreversible, how to re-engineer DNA mid-voyage if radiation outpaces generational adaptation, how to comfort a population that knows with absolute certainty they will die in transit. This was not astronaut training. This was arc sustainer training, multi-lineage civilization maintenance, and perhaps most chilling, they were taught to accept they would never see the destination. The elimination of the concept of one lifetime. The fundamental shift in their psychology was this: they were not living individual lives. They were living segments of a trajectory, a continuation of math, not a personal narrative. Legacy was deleted. Completion was deleted. Arrival was deleted as a psychologically necessary endpoint. Their existence had no traditional conclusion. Only contribution. To them, a full life was not reaching something. It was never allowing the mission to decay. The shattering of human scale. This generation was the first to emotionally operate on astronomical time. They saw centuries the way their ancestors once saw decades. They saw light years the way others saw continents. Death was not the end. Death was merely the handoff, the continuation. They were taught one sacred sentence from the age of 5. You are not the ones who arrive. You are the ones who ensure arrival is still possible. And unbelievably, they accepted it, not with despair, but with purpose. Earth watches with something worse than pride. The generation left on Earth saw this and experienced a new kind of existential fracture, because for all of human history, every newborn shared one thing: they were Earth's future. But these children, they did not belong to Earth at all. They had no patriotic allegiance, no ancestral weight, no mythological chain binding them backwards. They were humanity's first true post-planetary civilization, and for the first time ever, they were not Earthlings. This was the moment Earth was never prepared for, the moment it became clear that humanity's future no longer included the planet that created it, not symbolically, not spiritually, mathematically, strategically, permanently. By the time the second ARC program was announced, not experimental, not prototype, but mass capacity migration infrastructure, the realization finally entered the bones of those still living on Earth. We are not the continuation. We are the remainder, and that changed everything. The most painful truth. Earth was not chosen. The lie that comforted billions for years was this: we are working to save Earth. But the ARC initiative, the real one, was not a rescue project. It was a bypass project, a rerouting of humanity's long-term survival to a path that did not require Earth's recovery, a future where the species lives on, even if the planet does not. It was not cruelty. It was strategy. Earth had become the battlefield humanity chose to retreat from, not save. The psychological collapse. No one anticipated climate reports never broke people. Economic crashes didn't, pandemics didn't, wars didn't, but this did. Knowing your species will survive, but not you. Knowing you are not part of the future, but just the last citizens of a collapsing historical file. That the story continues, just not with you in it. This was not extinction, this was irrelevance, and that realization is more devastating than death. Faith, identity, and nations begin to fail. Entire civilizations were built on the belief the future is ours, but now the future would not speak there. Language would not remember their gods, would not inherit their borders, would not even require their species to remain fully human. This was not just geopolitical collapse, it was mythological collapse, the death of the emotional architecture human existence rested on. Why fight for a world you were mathematically excluded from? Why uphold laws meant for a civilization that was already leaving? Why raise children into a future that would not include them? These were not philosophical questions. They were biological, instinct level, and everything cracked. Or the rise of the unchosen civilizations. Earth began fracturing into four inevitable responses. 1. The resurrectors. We will heal Earth, make it better than before, and force humanity to return. 2. The despairing. If the story leaves us, why prolong the pain? Fatalism became doctrine. Cults of dignified extinction emerged. 3. The renegades. We build our own ships, not sanctioned, not controlled. We launch, even unready. 4. The loyalists. The Ark children are not humanity anymore. We are. Earth is the test, or not space. We stay until we die. For the first time, Earth became a planet with multiple timelines of belief, not just political differences, but cosmic stance differences, different definitions of what future even means. The most fragile silence in evolutionary history. In the history of all life, from the first amoeba to the first astronaut, never has a parent species had to acknowledge that its children were not coming back. Earth had always been the center, the story's stage, not its discarded chapter. But now the world had to re-understand itself as something unthinkable, a birthplace, not a destination, an origin, not a future, a memory, not a home. They would later call them the quiet years, the years when Earth stopped pretending it had a future, but still hadn't decided how to die. Not extinction, not war, not dramatic collapse, just the slow surrender of meaning. The most dangerous thing wasn't chaos, but order continuing as if nothing had changed. Schools still opened, governments still debated, cities still glowed at night like nothing was wrong. But beneath the surface, the soul had already left, because humanity had always survived on one hidden fuel, the belief that tomorrow included them. And in these final years, that fuel was gone. Society without a future. When the Ark Initiative became irreversible, when the first Exodus generation was fully acknowledged as the true continuation of humanity, everything on Earth became a museum of the temporary. Entire industries became pointless overnight. What is the purpose of university degrees when the next era will not exist on Earth? What is the meaning of economic growth for a civilization mathematically excluded from the future? Why build skyscrapers for a dying timeline? Why publish history textbooks for a lineage about to end? Why swear allegiance to nations that won't exist beyond one planet's lifespan? Everything remained functional, but nothing felt real. It was like watching actors still performing a play long after the audience has already left the theater. The death of purpose. It did not begin with violence. It began with disengagement. Career plans dissolved quietly. Birth rates fell to near zero, not by law, by instinct. Universities saw students arrive and simply stare. Military forces resigned en masse, without protest, without enemy. Religious sermons stopped promising heaven and started asking whether consciousness should return to dust with Earth. This was not rebellion. This was the nervous system of a planet disconnecting itself before the pain of reality fully arrived. The planet looks in the mirror and sees ghosts. Cities felt haunted, not empty, not abandoned, mourning. People still moved, but it felt like afterimages, the way sunlight remains in vision seconds after you close your eyes. Reality began to feel posthumous. Humanity was still alive, but psychologically post-existence. A species that knew it no longer occupied destiny, only the epilogue. The ones who refused to let Earth die. And yet, from that psychological collapse emerged the last great division, not between nations, not between rich and poor, between those who believed Earth must still be saved and those who believed it must be let go. The restorationists, they left too soon. We will bring Earth back to what it was and force the Ark to remember their origin. They began the largest ecological reversal effort ever attempted, not to delay extinction, but to reclaim dignity. The absolutists, they abandoned Earth, we abandoned them. Let our planet die on our terms. They shut down global systems, collapsed infrastructures intentionally, not out of hatred, but as euthanasia. And the watchers, neither saving nor destroying, only documenting, so that when Earth's last sky finally darkens, someone, somewhere, will know how it ended. Or the last question Earth ever asked itself. It was not scientific. It was not political. It was whispered in grief, across continents, across tribes, across languages. If we were never meant to be the future, then what were we meant to be? And incredibly, some began to answer, maybe we were not meant to survive, maybe we were meant to be a warning. There comes a moment in every fading civilization when even memory begins to let go, when names are not forgotten but no longer matter to those who remain. Earth had entered that moment, not with war, not with screaming, not with apocalypse, but with an exhale, a final weary surrender, not of life, but of expectation. The planet had finally accepted what humanity never dared to say aloud. Earth is no longer the center of human destiny. It is the origin of a story that has already left. The final night, where the sky still recognized us. They called it the last light, but not because the sun died, or cities fell, or oceans boiled away. It was called that because, for the first time, no one looked up and imagined a future anymore. The stars were still there. The moon still carved its silver path across the night, but for the first time in all of history, the sky was no longer a promise. It was a farewell. Across every continent, people stepped outside their homes, not to hope, not to fear, but to witness. Not the end of Earth, but the end of Earth's relevance to the future. The moment the world finally stops asking, what if? No one spoke that night, not because there was nothing to say, but because, for the first time in thousands of years, no words applied anymore. The vocabulary of human aspiration, progress, growth, destiny, tomorrow, died in a single collective breath. Children did not ask about their future. They knew, in a way ancient children never did, that it wasn't going to happen here. And in that haunting clarity, humanity did something it had never done before. It stopped imagining tomorrow. Not with a bang, but with a choice. There was no final war. There was no explosion, no alien invasion, no climate singularity. Earth did not end because it was destroyed. It ended because it was surpassed. A world made obsolete, not by failure, but by migration of destiny. Like a chrysalis after the butterfly has left, it had served its purpose. It did not fail, it fulfilled. The last message Earth sent to the stars. It was not a broadcast, not radio, not mathematics, not even directed at intelligence. It was a human archive, encoded not as technology, but as confession. We were flawed, we were late to understand, but we did awaken, and we tried in the end to be worth remembering. Not a cry for rescue, not a request to be found, only this: to whomever sees our echo, do better than we did. But the final image before Earth goes dark. As the planet slowly went quiet, one image remained, not in servers, not in monuments, but in the last shared human mind. A blue world, soft and fragile, that dreamed of giants among the stars. And in the endless dark beyond, at relativistic speed, a ship carries those dreamers forward, not looking back, not returning, not regretting.